Welcome folks to another Unreal tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to be looking at water. So I'm just going to go over to, not over the boxes, go over to this little pool that I've created. And you can see there, so what I've done is I've actually just dragged on one of the water materials. I've played around a little bit with the tiles, which we may go into a little bit because you may need to adjust your tiles, but essentially what I've done is I've created this box in, or pool shape in Maya, put it into Unreal, and then I've got a standard kind of basic shape from Unreal, and I've basically flattened that down almost into a plane, and that's what you can see there. Dragged on a water material and then just played around with the tiling, and then what I've done is I've put a post-processing box underneath and played around with the colours. And well, let's leap in and have a look, shall we? So this is the pool, you can see there, and then I'm going to hit spacebar. There we are, and you can see there that everything's changed. So we've got some chromatic aberrations there, we've got a colour change as well, and basically it has that kind of underwater feel about it. And then I'll kind of hop out again, you can see there, and hop back in. So without further ado, let's see how we do this. So what you'll need to do is, first of all, I'm just going to press F11, and let's just have a look and see how we made it. So before we start this video, you'll need to just go into, well, you can either use objects within Unreal, or you can go back into Maya and just make a box like so. I'm just going to save this project. And we'll call it pool tutorial. Oh, no spaces. Okay. And we shall save that there. Go. So there's our little level there. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sort of show you, I'm going to click on this, it's actually a cube that I've kind of flattened to a plane. So I'm going to delete that, also delete the trigger box, delete that as well. So we've got the trigger box and we've got the plane out of the way. So basically this is kind of what you need. Now I've made a little kind of a sort of step here, very makeshift step, just so you can kind of get out of the pool. So before you get going, put this video on pause. If you haven't created one already, you'll need to kind of create essentially this kind of box, basic cube in Maya, use the extrusion tool and basically create a kind of box shape. You don't need to texture it, just then export it as an OBJ and then import it into Unreal and then come back to the video. So, okay, if you've done that, that's great. Welcome back to the video, and we're now going to look into doing the first stages. So the first stage is we are going to go over to basic here, and we need a cube. I'm going to drag that into the space there, like so. And then what we'll need to do is we'll just need to stretch this out. Now it's very important that when we're stretching this cube out, you don't exceed the boundaries, but also you don't want it sort of poking out. So it might just mean just a little bit of kind of playing around. You can see there we're getting a little kind of shot through See, so yeah, so you know, just take a little bit of a moment just to kind of have a bit of a sort of play around with the shape. Just shrink this down a bit. Get this into position. Something like that, right? But also just making sure, can you see there, just on the end? So I need to just bring that in a little bit. Now, if you're getting any kind of stepping going on, you want to have a play around with some of these settings here, because sometimes it kind of go with a jolt. So because you need to kind of do a bit of fine tuning, yeah, just a play. Right, so it's not sticking out at the back, it's not sticking out there, or a little bit at the side actually. Let's have a look. Bring that in a little bit. There. Oops. Careful not to duplicate. And yeah, that's looking okay. So I'm just going to bring that up to around about there. So that's stage 2. So we've got stage 1 the box. Stage 2 is the well, the cube slash plane. That's all looking alright. So yeah, so something like that. Obviously it doesn't want to be thick because it's going to be water, so again just making sure that that's about right. It's all good. Take that bit down to the pool. Right, okay, so we're ready for stage 3, which is we're going to drag on our material. So I'm going to go to content and start content, and I'm going to go through to materials, and we need to go and find our water. Now when you drag it on, because I've been playing around with this now, I'm not sure if it's actually remembered the settings. It may well have done. Yes, you can see that. Now if you were to do this, what you may find is it's not as kind of stretched. Sorry, it's not as kind of detailed. It might be sort of stretched. If you double click on the actual material, you bring it up in the editor. Now, in a minute, that should show up by right. There we go. Right. So if you can zoom out with the middle mouse, you can see that it's actually quite complex, and you know, we could go through a tutorial of actually looking how to create the water, but that's going to be sort of quite lengthy, and I think we should use what's there and just manipulate it. Now, the bits that we need to be concerned about are these bits here where it says micro normal, right? So if we zoom out a little bit, this is what you'll be seeing, and the bit that we need to be manipulating is essentially it's the top one that is a primary concern. And where it says U tiling and V tiling, these are the bits that you need to be manipulating. So I'm just going to move this to one side just so you can see, and you can play around with these numbers. So if you hover your mouse over the actual box, it'll kind of show you, and you can increase. I suggest just have a play. Yeah, you see there I've kind of stretched that. Now it's a bit like it's just really a bit of trial and error. You can see there I've kind of done right. So I've just made that quite. That's about 18.445549. If I click apply, you'll see it change, which you're doing anyway. It's just loading it. Oh, there we go. So you can see it's kind of distorted it. It's kind of narrowed it, you know. And then if I sort of take it back down and apply it, give it a second. There. So you can see it's looking a bit normal. And you can do the same thing with this as well. So this is really for you to kind of have a bit of a play around. So just remember, when it comes to opening up the water lake, use the right button mouse to navigate around. It's the micro normal, and you can play around with some of these other ones as well, but generally speaking, if you want to kind of stretch and squash the tiles, this is the one to do it. The other ones, of course, you can manipulate those as well, but to kind of get that effect, just concentrate on the top one. Yeah, so you got that? Good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come out of that because I don't need to manipulate that anymore. So that's it. So we've got stage 1 pool shape made. Stage 2 we've got the cube and we've put that into a kind of plane. Stage 3 we've put the material on there. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to volumes. Now we could spend a bit of time and have a look at putting a physics volume in here. So if we just scroll down here, and that's perhaps something to explore another time, physics volume. With a physics volume, basically you drag this in, it'll be like a wireframe, and on the right hand side here it'll allow us to kind of play with gravity, so like kind of floating in the water. But I'm not going to go into that today, simply because it's quite tricky to get right. I've played around with this for a fair while, and I think that's just going to kind of hold us back. If this is just simply just like aesthetics, you know, we want to kind of create like a level that kind of plays like a game, more or less, but you know, it's something to kind of showcase your work, then let's just stick with this for the time being. You know, that's something we could circle back to another time in terms of physics and stuff. But the bit that we want to concern ourselves with is the post-processing volume. I'm going to click and hold on that and drag. So you can see there, it gives us a little box. And what we're going to do is we're going to stretch this now into place. Now this is a little bit tricky. It's a bit like when we're playing around with the box, the cube into a plane. We need to get this right. We need to kind of get this so it's kind of within. See there. So it's kind of within the entire scope of the pool. So again, just take a bit of time on this, and I'm going to take that, so we'll see what it's doing on the other side. So I'm going to stretch this out a little bit. Like so. Just stretch that out a little more. It doesn't matter if it's actually going into the sides of the pool. That doesn't matter, just as long as it's also not sticking above. So as we've got that there, what we want to do now is just drop it down, and we need to sort of drop it down just below the surface level, yeah? Because the effect that we're wanting to kind of create is we've got this on one side, but then as we go through, this is where the magic's going to happen, yeah? So if we just kind of go beneath the surface, you can see there now, as far as I can see, it's not, yeah, so we need to stretch that. So I'm just going to stretch this box. Now again, it doesn't matter if it kind of goes through the floor, because we're not going to see that, but it's very important that it sits beneath that water line there, so we can get the desired effect. So I think that's pretty much there. Cool. Okay, so we're about there. So we've got the box made, we've got the plane made, we've got the material on there, we've got the post-processing volume locked in there, and now we can have a bit of fun, right? So now if you look on the right hand side here, we've got a whole bunch of things which we can start to have a play around with. And this is essentially the post-processing, right? So we can look at all these goodies that we can manipulate. So let's get under the water. And the first thing we're going to play around with, as we're in this box now, is we're going to have a look at, if you go down all the way down here, it'll be scene color tint. You'll see the little white strip there. Click on that, and we're going to sort of make it a kind of blue color, so you'll see it kind of changing nice. Kind of probably want it more like sort of turquoisey blue, something like that. So that's the first one, and of course you can also play around with some of the intensity on that. That's perfectly fine. Next we can play around with saturation. Again, this is kind of an opportunity to really just have a look, you know, play around with some of the kind of some of the colours here, and again, you know, just putting a bit of finesse on there. Next we're going to have a look at we've got the scene colour tint done. Got saturation done. Then we can have a look at lens, and we can do things like chromatic aberrations. So if you tick the box, you can see there it kind of basically changes the sort of the focus on there. You can put a little vignette in there, so again it can kind of like darken it a little bit. Grain jitter and grain intensity, we'll leave that. Bloom. So we can put a standard bloom in there, and again you can kind of play around with the intensity of some of that. Again, I think the best thing to do is really just to kind of have a play with some of these things, see what kind of works for you. But anyway, I think it's pretty much around about there actually. There's some other stuff in here which you can kind of, by all means, kind of have a play around with, but you know, some of this, you know, is it's fairly, I mean, I think we've kind of got the desired effect really, but by all means kind of have a play. Anyway, without further ado, let's have a look, shall we? I'm going to go to play. So we're back out in our little lab. Going to jump on there. So you can see there, all looks fairly okay, and then we're going to have a jump in. Oh, one last thing we needed to do. My mistake is we need to make it so it is. It hasn't got the collision on there, so just one last thing we need to do before we do that. And I'm not going to change it in there, I'm going to change it in here. So with your thing selected, we'll go through to collision, and can come to step on, click on no collision. There we go. So that should by rights take care of that. We'll save. And let's try that again. There we go. And hey presto. So you can see there you've got that kind of chromatic aberration going on. There's a bit of sort of blurring going on. Now granted, we haven't got the physics with this sort of gravity sort of setup. But that's perhaps again for another time really. And that's pretty much it really. So yeah, any questions anyway, be sure to send me a message. But apart from that, hopefully you found this useful, and certainly, you know, for sort of doing your levels and maybe doing like underwater scenes. Anyway, that's it. Hope you found this useful, folks, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.